Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're taking a really fascinating, deep psychological dive straight into our own human nature. If you've ever stopped to wonder what exactly holds us back from being our best, most altruistic selves, well, you're in for an incredibly revealing journey today. Let's just jump right in.
So, why are we truly afraid to be good? It's a profound and honestly slightly unsettling thought. But according to our source material, there seems to be this invisible break on our desire to be truly good to others. It's kind of hard to analyze and pinpoint exactly what's happening under the surface, but we're going to try to unpack that whole mechanism today.
Okay, let's dive into this. We live in a highly comparative society. Whether we're navigating some complex family dynamics at a holiday dinner or just scrolling through our neighbors' perfectly curated lives online, we're constantly battling for social hierarchy. We're caught in this massive, exhausting conflict between our own personal interests and the interests of the group. And you know what? That battle leads to some pretty heavy internal states, like jealousy, envy, hatred, and frustration. But it doesn't just stay inside, right? It bleeds out into our externalized behaviors, ranging from snappy verbal attacks all the way to displaying exaggerated luxury and opulence. Ever noticed how someone buying a flashy new car is sometimes just a subtle way to assert dominance? It's all designed to bolster our social status and keep us from falling to the bottom of the pack.
But what's actually driving all of that? Well, beneath the flashy opulence, beneath the simmering jealousy and the social media envy, lies something much more primal. It's a deep, ancestral, species-specific fear of our own inner workings. We aren't just afraid of other people. We're literally terrified of what we might do or what might be done to us if all the social rules suddenly just vanished.
Section 1. The Essential Paradox.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how we're constantly torn between two completely opposing forces within ourselves. It's this fascinating internal dialectic. On one side, we have the need for the other. I mean, think about it. We absolutely require other people in order to count, to grow, to bounce ideas off of, and frankly, just to be appreciated or loved. We're social creatures down to our very DNA. But directly opposed to that need is our desire to dominate. We have this powerful, almost intoxicating urge to be above others, to exert control, to have authority, and of all else to avoid being the one subjected to someone else's will. It's a paradox. We want the community, but we desperately want to be the one in charge of it.
And this underlying fear pushes us into two totally distinct extremes. On the one hand, we're absolutely terrified of exclusion, isolation, and alienation. We dread being left out of the group, which is exactly why social rejection feels so incredibly painful. Yet, ironically, that exact same fear of vulnerability can push us toward the cruel assertion of authority, injustice, and manipulation just to protect ourselves. It creates this constant, contradictory turmoil right at the core of our existence. We pull people close because we need them. And then, well, we push them down because we fear them.
Section 2. Ideology and Inner Turmoil.
So, the author of the text actually breaks down these two directions of our inner struggle along broad ideological lines. Now, just to be super clear here, this isn't about one side being right or wrong. It's really just a structural mapping. Leftist traits are aligned with our deep need for and dependency on the other. So that's prioritizing living together, finding importance through adjacency, and thriving within a collective community. At the complete opposite end, right-wing traits are mapped to the dominating expression of the ego. That's championing unleashed subjectivity, surviving through controlling your environment, and seeking liberation from social constraints. The crucial point here is that the text utilizes these common political labels not as a critique, but purely as a framework to describe the two distinct, polarized sides of our fundamental human paradox playing out on a societal level.
And we need to be incredibly clear about this next point because it's absolutely vital to understanding the whole text. This is not about choosing sides or putting people into neat little boxes. Actually, the author argues that these two totally distinct zones of human interiority are found reunited in every single person, every single one of us. This deep, dual fear generates a constant, existential struggle inside all of us. You and I are constantly engaged in a tug of war between love and the fundamental need for others, versus the hostility or desire to be above them. It's all driven by that exact same ancestral terror of being left behind or overpowered.
Section 3. History of the Inner Struggle.
Throughout the centuries, totally different eras and entirely different disciplines have tried to make sense of this exact same seed of dual fear. If you look way back at religious mysticism, they blame the influence of evil forces, like the devil, for setting people against one another and causing this inner rift. Fast forward a bit, and socioeconomic lenses gave us concepts like the class struggle to justify and explain these inherent social hierarchies and power grabs. Philosophers have long debated the interdependent master-slave dynamic, where someone's identity relies entirely on dominating the other.
And later on, psychologists dove into the hidden depths of the human mind, viewing the subconscious like a massive iceberg where our primal fears just lurk below the surface. So you have vastly different historical and intellectual frameworks, but they're all pointing a massive spotlight at the exact same inner conflict.
And all of those historical frameworks lead us right to this incredibly powerful summary from the text. Bad with man, but worse without. It brilliantly illustrates the tragic interdependence we are locked into. It is incredibly difficult to exist peacefully with people because of the evils of hierarchies, the constant comparisons, and that fear of domination we talked about. But it is fundamentally, existentially worse without them because of our deep innate dependency on one another just to survive and find meaning. We're basically caught in a trap of our own nature.
Section 4. The fear of connection.
Think about how we're actually raised for a second. From a very young age, with every single stranger danger talk, every warning to be careful who you trust, we are subtly and sometimes overtly conditioned to anticipate people's malice towards us. We're taught to constantly guard our positions. And this creates a deeply ingrained psychological cycle where we inherently doubt others. And the real tragedy, everyone else in society is being taught the exact same thing about us. We all walk into the room with our armor already on, absolutely convinced the other person is the threat.
Let's see how this builds into what we can call the regression of goodness. Because we're so terrified that if we don't strike first, or at least put up our walls first, we'll be struck. We completely abandon the idea of a generalized or free good. That's the idea of just being purely altruistic without expecting a single thing in return. Instead, our interactions regress into a series of defensive postures. We settle for a guarded, lukewarm tolerance of one another. As time goes on, that tolerance turns into calculated negotiations. We'll only give if we get. And ultimately, we're left relying on cold, formal diplomacy just to exist in the same space. All of our relational aspects pass through this heavy filter of fear and distrust, leaving us with connections built entirely on reservations and reticence rather than genuine warmth.
Which brings us to the ultimate tragedy outlined in the text. You would logically think that closeness brings total comfort. You'd think that the better you know someone, the safer you feel, right? But actually, the fear grows as bonds intensify and people become closer. Whether we mentally calculate the dangers, just intuit them, or try to cover them up entirely with politeness, that existential fear is always there, just humming in the background. It gets highly activated the more intense and intimate our connections become, because the closer someone is to you, the more power they have to hurt you or dominate you.
So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to ponder. If fear truly grows as our bonds intensify, how does this hidden survival instinct actively shape your closest relationships today? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope these insights and our deep dive today have given you a powerful, structured new lens to view our complex interpersonal paradoxes. Until next time, keep learning and keep exploring.